I really appreciate the opportunity to celebrate our work in historic preservation. And I want to speak to you today about my efforts in making historic preservation a priority, especially as we write the government's annual appropriations bills. Now, some of you might recall that in 1993, the first Walmart in Vermont opened. The National Trust for Historic Preservation put our entire state, the entire state of Vermont, on their list of most endangered historic places. They were worried, and rightly so, that the state's first Walmart would mark an end to Vermont's beloved rural way of life and its historic village centers. In Vermont, we've used the almost 30 years since that list came out to do our best to keep an economy and our proud way of life. And as Marcel and I are able to plan to spend a lot more time at our home in Vermont in the coming years, I can be confident that my work in the Senate has helped protect the state we love so much. We are both born in Vermont. We both have so much in Vermont that we want to see preserved, not only for us, but for our children and our grandchildren. And throughout my years on the Appropriations Committee, I've made a priority of advancing historic preservation priorities. When I was vice chair and then chair, I provided consistent increases in the Historic Preservation Fund, including the money that's set aside for state historic preservation officers. Iconic buildings and spaces all over the country have been preserved for future generations. We've done this with the Save America's Treasures Grant Program. But my proudest historic preservation accomplishment was the creation of a special program, the Paul Brune Grants. That's a program that did not exist 5 years ago. But you know what? It now supports millions of dollars of rural and small town projects across the country every year. I had the opportunity to speak with you all last year about these grants. And you know they're named after my very dear friend and former chief of staff. I know that many of you had a chance to meet Paul before he passed away in 2019. He founded the Preservation Trust of Vermont. Marcel and I were so proud to see what he did, and we're so proud to see what the trust did. Their great work continues to this day as an example of the way rural towns can transform themselves by preserving buildings that then serve as community anchors. I believe that it's more important than ever to recognize that part of making community by saving spaces that support it. Now, we've all seen places that we love that have struggled during the pandemic. And we've seen the hole that's left in the community if a building lies vacant. The pandemic has been one more challenge for our libraries, meeting halls, general stores, old hotels, and the towns they support. Towns are working to keep their populations from declining, and especially keeping their community spirit alive. But despite the pandemic, we've seen some victories in Vermont over the past year, from St. Johnsbury to Rupert and Guilford. So this Vermonter believes we have to continue to invest in historic preservation. And our investments must bring places full circle. We have to make sure that a building that's 100 years old can stay useful for a community for another 100 years. It's been a pleasure to work with you all during my 48 years in the Senate. But I know you will continue to your advocacy at every level of government in support of the importance of these funding sources. So Marcel and I thank you for all you do to protect and preserve our rich and wonderful history. Thank you.